broadcast edition of the Alex Jones Show live on this Saturday, 12th June 2011, live at the Bilderberg Hotel, the Souvretta, up on the mountain in St. Switzerland. We got the protest scheduled to kick off almost imminently. We got a ton of information coming up, special guests, all of the info warriors, the We Are Changers here on the scene. It's another rainy day in Switzerland, but the spirits are high as the protest kicks into high gear. Of course, this is a special broadcast of the Alex Jones Show. We're going to go for about an hour, and then we'll be back later on for a second installment later on in the day. So we're at Bilderberg 2011. We're just 100 yards down the road from the Bilderberg Hotel, at which the war criminals and the global elite are meeting today. Of course, massive developments. Last night we had the Swiss politician there in the biggest party in Switzerland, the Swiss People's Party, Dominic Bettig, give a speech and then march down to the Bilderberg Hotel itself and confront the police on the fact that they're protecting people who are committing treason, including supposed representatives of the Swiss people themselves. So Bettig basically confronted the police. He had a conversation with them, and they wouldn't let him in. There was talk that he was going to come back this morning, but that wasn't the case. So now we're joined with the protesters for this resistance movement against Bilderberg as the excitement mounts. And we're going to hand over to Aaron Dykes to get some of the latest news and intel on the Bilderberg group. Here's Aaron Dykes.
Thank you, Paul. So you just mentioned Dominic Bettig trying to walk in. Of course, Jim Tucker on the first day also officially tried to gain entrance, and he reported that they, as routinely as the past years, said, "No, Mr. Tucker, you can't come in." They know him by name every year at the conference, no matter where it is in the world. Securities are always well informed about Jim Tucker's movements, but it's a very healthy sign that we now have members of the Swiss legislature coming and trying to enter. Excuse me. And that's partially in response to the fact that an Italian EU Parliament member named Mario Borghese also tried to enter into the facility of Bilderberg about a day and a half ago. And he was not only refused entry, he was pushed down, and his nose was blood, reportedly. So just absolutely ridiculous police brutality committed against a member of the EU Parliament who simply tried to gain entry into the Souvretta Hotel, the site of the Bilderberg meeting. Really just a brazen move of the Bilderberg police state that's surely going to work against them. And Dominic Bettig, in addition to trying to gain entry into the hotel, says he will be looking into the reasons behind that police brutality and trying to get some answers or even an official apology. Dominic Bettig has also, prior to the meeting, written a letter calling for Henry Kissinger's arrest, saying that he shouldn't be allowed into the country. There is a warrant for Henry Kissinger's arrest in several countries, including France. And many of these countries also have agreements, of course, to transport criminals, extradite, I guess you would call it. So Henry Kissinger may have had to sneak into this meeting quite covertly, and he may make a surprise exit. Other developments that have happened over the past few days are not directly Bilderberg related, but again related to U.S. politics, and that is simply just to recap the fact that Texas Governor Rick Perry, a 2007 Bilderberg attendee who's been pre-vetted for the presidency, may in fact be running. He's floating that decision right now. And the other item, that Hillary Clinton, quote, wants the World Bank position. The World Bank position is quite notoriously always held by a Bilderberg member. The past several heads of the World Bank have included, have included Paul Wolfowitz, James Wolfenson, and also Robert Zoellick. Also, we reported on the first day of Bilderberg that one of the major decisions going on inside the hotel during the conference here will be the replacement to Dominique Strauss-Kahn at the IMF. So both of those international bank organizations created under the Bretton Woods Agreement before the end of the World War II will both be updated, and those decisions will be made here inside the meeting. We've actually heard two different names floated in regards to the IMF presidency, and one is a Mexican official. Paul, do you have his name handy? It's on record. We'll have to get back with you on that. And another is, who was the other person they floated for the IMF? I believe it was someone else also from France, a woman. Christine Lagarde. Yeah. Then in other news, we've been able to stake out the hotel from multiple angles. And yesterday we filmed a helicopter taking off around midday, and there's some high-quality photos of the aides who handled Doris Lothar. We believe she took off in a helicopter shortly before Dominique Bettig, both of them Swiss officials, before Dominique Bettig came to ask questions. Doris Lothar may have left in the helicopter before she could be confronted on breaking the Swiss versions of the Logan Act, committing treason against our country by meeting secretly with the Bilderberg meetings. And she is reportedly meeting over the agenda to end nuclear power here in Switzerland by the year 2034. Germany has also decided to discontinue their atomic power, and we have just found out today from our inside sources with Jim Tucker that Angela Merkel is here at the meeting, but she's not been on the list, possibly for the same reasons, that she doesn't want to be identified. Other names we've learned from our sources that were not on the official list, which of course we leaked yesterday and put on Infowars.com, which was also carried by DrudgeReport.com, include Bill Gates, who we tentatively identified on the first day, but were not able to confirm until today. But in fact, Jim Tucker and other inside Bilderberg sources have confirmed that Bill Gates, head of Microsoft, and of course the very conspiratorial Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, is here at the Bilderberg meeting in 2011. There's another Gates here, and this may be an even bigger story and another count of treason, and that is outgoing Secretary of Defense Robert Gates. But of course, he's still holding that position. But according to Tucker and other inside sources, he is here inside the Bilderberg meeting, but not on the official list. The reason for that is quite clear, because the Logan Act specifically forbids official U.S. Personnel from meeting in secret with foreign dignitaries, foreign officials, and he could be fined and should also be punished for committing that act. But of course, he's very close to the Brzezinski circles as well as the Bush circles, so he is a top globalist. And although he is rotating out of that position soon. Another name on the list is Jose Luis Zapatero, who is the head of Spain, the Spanish prime minister, that is. And he, too, is inside the meeting, but not on the official list, quite possibly for similar reasons. One more name not on the list we were able to confirm through photographic evidence, which we also captured on the first day, is Andres Rasmussen. Rasmussen is the head of NATO. He's an international official, obviously looking to escalate the war in Libya and simultaneously seeking to give it some legitimacy. So incredible updates today. And Paul, I don't want to tease the audience, but we have some even more incredible info. I'm not joking about that. We've got some really incredible inside sources, some really bombshell, just dark information, and we're waiting on one of our sources to get back to us with an update, but we will surely be dropping that information coming up shortly here in this special broadcast live on Saturday, June 11th. Right now, I'm going to hand the phone back to Paul Joseph Watson.
We're here live at the Bilderberg 2011 protest in St. Moritz, just outside the Savresa Hotel, where the global elite are meeting. Of course, they're going to go home tomorrow. We're going to be catching all the video and the photographs as they leave, hopefully getting some more snapshots. Like Aaron was talking about earlier, we went up on a different location behind the hotel, and we were actually able to walk into the field, onto the hill, which sits directly level with the hotel. You get a really close vantage point from this position. And basically we saw what turned out to be a Swiss military helicopter preparing to take off, which is obviously key because that helicopter is paid for by Swiss taxpayers, which of course brings into under the the spotlight this whole issue regarding this Doris Leuthard, because she is the Swiss federal government official. It was announced in the newspaper days ago that she would be attending Bilderberg, and from a zoom lens snapshot that we later received, there's an image of Doris Leuthard leaving yesterday afternoon, and she is accompanied by an aide who we also separately captured on photograph right before this helicopter took off and flew over the mountains, which all points to the fact that Leuthard carefully timed her departure to take place before the arrival of the Swiss People's Party politician Dominique Beytig, because of course he has identified Leuthard as being one of the treasonous individuals that has broken Swiss laws to attend this meeting and speak with representatives of foreign countries. Now, we were talking to the aide of Dominique Beytig last night at the event, which many of you will have seen on Justin TV, and he gave us the actual Swiss laws, which are the equivalent to the Logan Act in the United States. Of course, the Logan Act states that no U.S. politician in a position of power can meet privately, secretly with foreign officials, and in fact, Hillary Clinton was fined for doing so. But under the Swiss laws, which are all contained on the website admin.ch, basically they're the direct equivalent to the Logan Act. So the fact that Leuthard attended, that the military helicopter that flew her out was paid for by Swiss taxpayers, directly implicates her in treason, and we've talked to numerous individuals that are now actively pursuing a legal case, certainly against her and maybe other Bilderberg members. But you've got to forgive us today for being a little bit dingy, because we were literally up until 5 a.m., and for very good reason. Of course, you know that Jim Tucker routinely gets the most bombshell inside information from basically just talking to people who are staff at the hotel who have had access to the Bilderberg Group in positions such as, you know, waiters, bartenders, people like that. But what Aaron mentioned earlier is literally probably the biggest story to come out of Bilderberg this year. Aaron, you introduce it, and then I'll add some further details.
Well, again, Paul, we were at one of the hotel's bars. I won't name the hotel for the protection of all of us, as this story is still breaking, and who knows who it's going to anger. But we did contact a source who is very closely, very intimately connected with one or more of these Bilderberg members. Paul, are you ready to break this story, or are we waiting on our source to get back to us? Well, Paul, I want you to hit this, because I don't want to screw up the details here, because it's very bombshell information, obviously.
Yeah, we've got to tread very, very carefully on this, because it's not even fleshed out. Obviously, this is not confirmed, but basically after the march last night, it was about midnight before Dominique Beytig actually did the confrontation with the police here. So we jumped into the car to head back to the hotel at about midnight, and then went into the bar, obviously, for a quick drink. Now, that turned into basically a 4 or 5 hour marathon of trying to tease some information out of this individual. Now, let me preface this with the article that you may remember from the New York Post, but back in 2004, which was something like prostitute service moguls at Bohemian Grove. And of course, we know that they like to butt in male prostitutes at Bohemian Grove to satisfy their assorted deviant pleasures. And back to what happened last night in relation to this. Basically, we got talking to the bar staff there, and it turned out that one of them told us he had a very important job to attend at 9:30 the next morning. And it soon became apparent that that job was providing a certain kind of service to members of the global elite. The venue he named was actually very close to the Suvretta Hotel, just up the mountain. And we were gradually trying to tease this information out of him, because he was very, very reticent to give us any direct details. But of course, how we work these people is to, you know, give them another drink one after the other, which is why we were there until 5 a.m. And basically, although we're waiting to confirm this, and we're going to talk with Alex from InfoCreep, because he's got more information on it, it appears as if this individual was preparing to fly out at 9:30 this morning to a location near the Bilderberg Hotel to provide a certain service to Bilderberg members that goes beyond serving them food and drink. Now, this is an individual that, from his behavior and from his mannerisms, obviously suggested that he was gay. And the fact that he was planning to go on this mission, which he suggested he would be transported there by helicopter, suggests that his role is exactly what it suggests. And we're going to be talking to Alex from InfoCreek in a moment to try and get more details on this. So this could be the biggest story out of Bilderberg 2011. So we're feverishly trying to fill in the blanks. Aaron Dykes.
And Paul, just to put it in greater context, we know, of course, that the Bohemian Grove meetings, they routinely fly in primarily male prostitutes. They also fly in some female prostitutes, but the prevailing... Okay, we've got a bullhorn on the hill over here, and let me just cut into my own report and say that we do have pretty good numbers, maybe only about 100, but very active activists out here who really have a lot of signs and want the Bilderbergs to know what they think. We have, by the way, seen quite a few of their Bilderberg limos still arriving even today, going in and out of the meetings, transporting the members. We're not exactly sure. But to get back to this bombshell information regarding a source that we've contacted in a hotel here in the area, again, Bohemian Grove and these other exclusive retreats, we know that male prostitutes are routinely shipped in, some female, but the prevailing preference would be for male escorts. And that's also true of Jeff Gannon, who's admittedly connected to the White House and so forth. So we know these elitists do have these kind of tastes, and it's not really a surprise that we would find a source like that. It's just also a matter of luck. And Paul, he's gone down the hill. Would you like to add anything on that? Sure. I'm going to pass the phone right now to John of We Are Change Birmingham. He's been here with exclusive video and also talking to sources, helping us gather information. I'm going to pass the phone to him for a minute.
Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, last night we were in a couple of bars in Tamarit, in the town here, in the village, and we got some information that possibly somebody was going to be working today at one of the Bilderberg meetings, possibly serving food or drink. Later on, it became apparent that actually he wasn't going to be just serving food or drink, he was going to be serving something totally different. And obviously that was quite a shock to us. We didn't really think that we would come across, somebody who was admitting to us that he was a male prostitute. And he was obviously very cagey then. He sort of said, no, I can't talk about it. We sort of said, look, we'll give you some money, tell us something, anything that comes out of there is really important. Listen to what these guys are talking about, because any of this stuff could affect the world's interest over the next 12 months or indeed into the longer term. And, it was pretty gobsmacking to be in a bar and to hear somebody sort of literally admit that today they were going to be servicing some moguls up here at Bilderberg in El Paradiso, which apparently is some type of log cabin, which is very close to the hotel, I understand, very close to the hotel here at Savetta in Tamarit. And we've actually got Alex here from InfoCreek, and I think he's going to tell us a little bit more.
So, yeah, we got some new intel, and it's supposed to be a small, very beautiful, very posh town close to the city of Lugano. And we're speculating on why this is necessary. Is this just a pleasure trip? Is this just fun, a fun part? Because remember, these are 130 of very, very important power brokers. They don't have any time to waste. They came here on a very, very tight schedule. So we're asking ourselves, why do some of these Bilderbergers seclude themselves from other Bilderbergers to go to that place? Because if it's just for fun, we're asking ourselves, don't they understand they have a very tight schedule and they can't waste any time because they have to figure out how to kill the free internet, and they put up these timetables. So they're very busy. It's a very, very weird situation we're dealing with here. Oh yeah, of course. There's some people locals, they're always hired when these meetings take place, and they're being security checked, triple checked. We heard some stories about how that all goes down. Very, very high level of security. I mean, even I was surprised how big the security is if they actually hire a local to do some of the servicing. So we speculate this might be a pleasure trip, or this might be some secluded special conversation, secluded from the main Bilderbergers. And of course, that would be a very, very important talk. If we can spot people, if we can follow maybe a helicopter or the cars, if we can drive to that place, because I think we know exactly where it is. If we can see faces, get faced on camera, we would maybe get a clearer picture of why they went there, who went there, and kind of deduct from that what they're talking about there, what they're doing up there.
Thank you very much, Alex. And obviously, we are going to be trying to contact that source later and get more information from him. But he was rather reluctant to speak to us. And as Paul mentioned, it took the course of several drinks to draw out more information regarding a possible male escort for one of the Bilderberg members. And obviously, we cannot disclose the exact location for the protection of ourselves, the reporters, and the source. We don't want to put anyone in danger. This is really serious business, and these are the big boys who don't play games. They're not afraid to neutralize leaks and sources and potential moles if they identify them. So this is very serious stuff, and we don't want to play any games with that. Now, we might shift gears altogether and talk about another very bombshell Bilderberg source that's been lying in plain sight for about the past year. There's on the official site, bilderbergmeetings.org, and although they don't disclose an awful lot of information, they do now list a series of topics, very euphemistically titled, academic language. It sounds very proper and everything, but there are clues in there as to some of their inner dealings. Let me just give you some of the information from last year's conference, which was June 3 through 6, 2010, in Sitka, Spain. Just a few hours train ride from here in St. Moritz, Switzerland, the site of the 2011 meeting. In 2010, in Sitka, Spain, Bilderberg admits themselves that they discussed current events, North Korea, Iran, and non-proliferation, global cooling, implications of slow economic growth, kind of a tongue-in-cheek reference to global warming shifting to other paradigms as the economic growth continues to slow. Of course, many of the carbon tax measures are designed to do just that, shut down the economy. So a potential interpretation of that agenda meeting item from 2010. Also from the 2010 meeting, we know that there was the growing influence of cyber technology. This is going to be a very important point. I'll get back to that in a moment. The growing influence of cyber technology. Also, is financial reform progressing? In other words, are the world government Bilderberg elitists going to get in the centralizing and financially enslaving measures they want to get out of the larger global financial crisis? It's something that Ednier Davignon wrote about in 2009, just after the 2008 economic crash had begun, that though they hoped to bring in some very serious world government economic control measures, they also knew that these measures were extremely unpopular with the people of Europe. We've seen evidence of that, obviously, from all the austerity protests in the various countries across Europe, most recently in Spain, also in Solidarity, France. Luke Rudowski of We Are Change, of course, has been reporting on that as he was just over there last week. Also from the 2010 Sitka, Spain meeting, again from the official Bilderberg disclosed topics, U.S. and European fiscal and financial challenges. Also the European Union and the crisis of the euro. The European Union and the crisis of the euro, this very much fits into the fact that they're meeting here in Switzerland. Tucker and other inside sources have already suggested, as well as Dominique Bettig, that one of the agenda items they would like to achieve is coaxing Switzerland into accepting the euro and into joining the European Union. But of course, they are a very proud, very sovereign country. They have no interest in doing that. They have an extremely strong currency here of their own, the Swiss franc, and they have one of the highest living standards anywhere in the entire world, higher even than in the U.S., and whether or not they would be able to bring Switzerland to their knees would be absolutely bombshell for the total domination of the European Union. So that's a very important item to watch. And one thing we did see last night at the meeting, which was held mostly in German, but also included some English translations, was Dominique Bettig and Lucas Reisman, and also another member of the legislature here in Switzerland. They came to speak out against the Bilderberg meeting, to ask for transparency, and to resist the globalization efforts, particularly in regard to currency in the European Union trying to be imposed on Switzerland. So that's a very important front of resistance to continue. Another very important topic from 2010 in Cinque Spain, again officially disclosed, promises of medical science. We know that Bill Gates has been to Bilderberg several times over the past years, and we've just learned today from our inside sources that Bill Gates of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, one of the mega billion-dollar foundations funding vaccines, various measures in Africa, and plenty of other stuff, he would obviously be involved with the medical science area, as would other of the very important members here. Also on this list is energy's promises and challenges. We know that some of the Danish members want to change us entirely to a carbon-neutral form of energy, and even more bombshell, we have both Switzerland and Germany dropping nuclear power and attempting to phase it out. In the case of Switzerland, by the year 2034, that's why this year attending Doris Leuthard is very key on that topic, who we believe we saw flown out yesterday. Also in the 2010 official topics list, security in a proliferated world, Europe, U.S., a new approach. And then this one I found very significant, social networking from the Obama campaign to the Iranian Revolution. Let me repeat that, social networking from the Obama campaign to the Iranian Revolution. For several years now, we've been hearing about the Twitter revolutions, the color revolutions, the various protests within Iran, and most, if not simply many, of the other countries there in the Middle East. We've seen, obviously, quite a bit of protesting, spouts of violence, and various changes of dictators and heads of state over the past several years. That's something really to take a look at. We know that Hillary Clinton and other U.S. officials have been involved in coaching and training and fielding a lot of these social networking revolutionaries there in Egypt and in Iran and the other countries. And this is further significant because there are quite a lot of high-tech Bilderberg members here in attendance. We've talked so much in the past years about the elderly members who've been working on world government in excess of 50 years. But I think the important developing front of the Bilderberg meeting is that there's people like the CEOs of Facebook coming here, Craig Mundy and Bill Gates of Microsoft coming here, Peter Thiel of the Bilderberg Steering Group, one of the major financiers of Facebook, also a hedge fund manager and the CEO of PayPal. Of course, we also have the various intelligence agencies, the CIA, the NSA, and others, all working on these new revolutionary platforms. That's only a few of the members. There's quite a few involved in high-tech and new areas of online. So I think that's really an area to watch. There's a lot more on BilderbergMeetings.org, a real insider source lying in plain sight. I won't go through it all now, but I thought I would just cover that much of it. I'm going to turn you back over now to Paul Joseph Watson.
We're here live, Bilderberg 2011 protest day on this Saturday. As we broke earlier, the bombshell news about the potential male escort servicing the Bilderberg moguls. We're going to try and dig up more information on that, because obviously that could be the biggest story to come out of this conference. Just beforehand, Aaron was talking about the attendee list, and specifically the people who did not appear on the official list, but actually from Jim Tucker's routinely accurate inside sources later emerged, were at the conference. One, of course, is Anders Rasmussen. Now, on the very first day, we photographed Anders Rasmussen, and we were almost immediately able to confirm his presence, and which, of course, ties into the revelation that they're planning to expand the war in Libya
beyond the end of the year. The cost of the war is already at $750 million, scheduled to rise over $1 billion in the coming weeks. So Rasmussen is basically here to coordinate the policy to deeply entrench the United States and the NATO powers further into the war, the bombardment, no-fly zone against Libya. We're going to go to some music now. We're going to come back with interviews with activists here at the Bilderberg 2011 protest. It's the Alex Jones Show live. Stay tuned. We're going to go to some music now. Back live on the Alex Jones Show special broadcast edition, live from St. Moritz, Switzerland, site of the 2011 Bilderberg meeting here at the Savretta Hotel. We were going through the attendee list before. Another subject that we need to cover is the presence of the Chancellor of the Exchequer of Great Britain, a man named George Osborne, and some local We Are Change activists from Birmingham actually tried to contact his office, as well as Charlie Skelton, the Guardian writer, to get some kind of response as to why the British Chancellor of the Exchequer is here meeting with the global elite. And we've got John from We Are Change Birmingham to discuss that further.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, yesterday somebody realised that obviously George Osborne was present, and that as a British citizen, we would obviously possibly be paying for his presence here. So a few phone calls were made to the Conservative Party, to his offices. They initially didn't know where he was for the weekend. They'd never heard of the Bilderberg group. They were very sketchy as to where he was. But after numerous phone calls, they did get back to our source and did inform us that, yes, he was obviously here, and he was here as the British Chancellor, acting as the Chancellor of the Exchequer. Now, obviously, the fact that there are not just military, but large CEOs of corporations meeting with the Chancellor of the Exchequer of the United Kingdom is obviously quite worrying for, would be worrying for many Brits. So really the point is that they are covering the fact that they are here and saying, yes, I'm here as the British Chancellor of the Exchequer, but they are not saying who paid for them to get here, where the funding was, whether they were supposed to be doing something else here, and obviously what the minutes are. And as the British Chancellor of the Exchequer, they should be giving detailed reports on what is discussed. And obviously, as most of the listeners know, there are no reports that come out of Bilderberg unless they are leaked. I have another source, Tony Gosling, who said that there was a little bit of a coincidence or a similarity between an 18th century group called the Hellfire Club. And apparently the Chancellor of the Exchequer was actually cut out of the government after 1 year, was kicked out because of the unpopular cuts that were put into place. And what Tony was just recently saying to me was that it was quite possible that Mr. Osborne is actually being set up to obviously take the rap for the austerity cuts in the UK that obviously the bankers have engineered probably a few years ago at the Bilderberg meeting. And this Hellfire Club apparently was a similar organisation to the Bilderberg Group, but in the 18th century. So I thought it was worth mentioning that. I'll pass you back to Paul Watson.
John of We Are Change Birmingham, talking about the attendance of the Chancellor of the Exchequer in Britain, George Osborne, at the 2011 Bilderberg meeting. Obviously, another major story to come out of the conference was an incident that happened late on Thursday, a couple of days ago. Here's the headline from The Local, which is one of Switzerland's biggest news websites. MEP bloodied, sneaking into Bilderberg Hotel. Italian MEP Mario Borghesio was reportedly given bloody nose on Thursday as he attempted to sneak into the secretive Bilderberg conference in San Moritz. Borghesio, right-wing Italian party Lega Nord, was reportedly with another Italian as he attempted to infiltrate the luxury Suvretta House Hotel where the conference is taking place. And it says Borghesio was blocked by guards from the security firm Securitas, that's the organisation with the all-seeing eye as their logo, who then called in the Swiss police. After having their identities checked, the two Italians were told they could not enter the building. But according to the Italian news agency, ANSA, Borghesio's nose was bloodied during the altercation with the security guards. He told the agency he intends to press charges. So we actually have an allegation of the security guards here at Bilderberg assaulting an Italian member of the European Parliament who asked if he could enter the elite compound. Of course, we had Dominic Betteg yesterday, who basically did the same thing as Borghesio. He wasn't met with such a violent response, mainly because there were about 200 camps trained on the incident. And of course, they'd known about it in advance because it was announced earlier in the day that would happen. So we're going to talk to more activists here. Got a build crowd for this noon Bilderberg 2011 protest. The Saturday, the Bilderberg members are going to be leaving tomorrow, so we're going to be getting all the footage, and we're going to shortly hand back to Aaron Dykes to host the rest of the show. We're going to run until about the top of the hour, and then we're going to come back with the broadcast later on this evening. We'll announce the time for that shortly. We're here at Bilderberg 2011 protest. Going to hand back now to Aaron Dykes for more on the latest information coming out from the elitist confab. Here's Aaron Dykes.
Paul, I haven't even told you about this, but we actually have another bombshell inside source, which obviously I can't give full details on. We have one of the activists here, obviously I'm not going to name him, has a personal relationship with the manager of the hotel. He's been trying to contact him over the past several days. That is the manager of the Suvretta Hotel. He hasn't been able to reach him yet, but perhaps after the conference is over, he may get him to speak on certain topics or or we don't know yet if he'll disclose any information at all. But in past years, Tucker has absolutely relied on hotel employees and personnel for leaks about the agenda. In the past, the list has been gone by various maids and hotel clerks who found it in the trash can and pulled it out and handed it to Tucker. So we don't know yet if this source will develop anything at all, but it's another potential bombshell source from directly inside the Subretta Hotel. Obviously not a member of the Bilderberg meetings, but one of the hotel managers. I'm not sure if there's kind of a chain of command on the staff or if there's multiple managers. We don't have a name at this time, and I'm not sure if we should disclose it at any rate. But we will get back to you if that source develops any bombshell information. Just getting back to the fact that people have shown up to protest Bilderberg, the numbers are beginning to climb here on the Hill. People are spread out in a festival or almost kind of Woodstock of the people, kind of gathering signs everywhere telling Bilderberg to go home, telling them we don't want you here, saying New World Order. A lot of them very interesting signs. Yesterday there was a sign kind of depicting Mr. Burns from The Simpsons as one of the Bilderberg meetings. Mr. Burns, of course, really profound caricature of David Rockefeller. They're always using various schemes to prolong his life and exploit his wealth. And I believe, I could be wrong about this, but I recall a number of Simpsons episodes where they've referred to the character Mr. Burns being a Yaley, well, certainly a Yaley and possibly even a Skull and Bones member. That's not the case for David Rockefeller, but Mr. Burns is sort of a composite. The only reason I mention that is because he was on the sign for Bilderberg to get out, and it's kind of an interesting way to get the message out. The numbers are not the kind of thing you would see at a mass demonstration, but it is the people here telling Bilderberg to go home. We've also received reports that one of the socialist youth groups is planning to protest. We've not seen any sign of them yet, but perhaps will show up later in the day. It'll be interesting to see exactly what they're here to protest. I've been talking with various of the activists here, especially those who are based in Switzerland, and one of them had contact with some of these socialist members who kind of mocked and ridiculed the so-called conspiracy theorists here protesting Bilderberg. But why exactly it's a conspiracy theory, I don't know. We know for certain that they are meeting in a cabal fashion, setting the world agenda. And really, if you want to get right down to it, all these activists are saying is, number one, we need more transparency. We can't have government and supranational governments, national governments and supranational governments, and various quasi-government entities, as well as some of the most important people in business, meeting in secret. Even if what they were doing is good, it allows them access to insider trading, first bids, the ability to control new markets and steer the direction. And the things happening online is just one of the many aspects of that. The other thing beyond transparency is obviously a lot of these anti-New World Order protesters clearly object to the globalization. We touched earlier on how Tucker and others, as well as Dominic Beddick of the Swiss Parliament, have broken down the agenda to try to bring Switzerland to its knees, one of the most sovereign and proudly sovereign countries still remaining. They are not part of the euro. They are not part of the European Union at this point in time. They have a very strong currency value generally. It is above the dollar. It's roughly on par with the euro. They would like to see Switzerland become part of the euro, become part of the European Union, but clearly the people here in Switzerland are very much against that. They don't want to be victim to the globalization schemes designed right here inside the Bilderberg meeting at the Subretta Hotel in 2011 in just picturesque Swiss Alps. Paul Watson, have you got anything else to add right now?
Yeah, I mean, talk about picturesque. The setting for this meeting is in one of the most beautiful places in the world. Switzerland, probably one of the most scenic and picturesque countries on the planet, if not the number one. And the fact that these disgusting criminals are disgracing the very name of Switzerland in this very geographical location, which otherwise is stunning, just strikes at the heart of how unwelcome they are here. Just going over some of the latest media coverage of the Bilderberg Group, of course,
we had the BBC article, Bilderberg Mystery, Why Do People Believe in Cabals? And the actual image that runs at the top of this story has the Freemason logo, the all-seeing eye, a man dancing on a string. Ordinary people could only guess at the goings-on at the meetings of the secret Bilderberg group. Well, we don't need to guess when we get the leaked inside info, which is bringing together the world's financial and political elite this week. Conspiracy theories abound as to what is discussed and who is there. Why? Asked Tom de Castella. Now, even in that opening paragraph, even asking what they're doing, why they're meeting there, is framed as some kind of bizarre thing to ask. Like it's not normal to be suspicious about 120 of the world's global elite meeting in one place with barely any mainstream media coverage. Imagine if 200 NBA stars met with referees at some secret location. Do you think media would be interested? Or, 120 film stars? So this article is basically trying to frame any belief that Bilderberg has influence or power as not just a conspiracy theory, but something that seems quite dangerous to even consider. They talk about the belief in secret cabals running the world is a hardy perennial. That's the quote from the article, a hardy perennial. So the whole article is about how merely talking about Bilderberg, merely speculating on what their policy may be, is some kind of fantasy or belief. Now, I've also got other coverage, of course. Charlie Skelton's articles in the London Guardian have been excellent as usual. Forbes magazine, CNBC, Baltimore Sun actually was probably the first real American news outlet to break any kind of story on Bilderberg, aside from CNBC, and that came out yesterday again. Most of the coverage, the news coverage this year, as it has been in recent years, is tending towards the neutral. Obviously, 5-10 years ago, we were lucky to get, less than a handful of articles about the Bilderberg group meeting. But this year, we've got a literal deluge, especially in the Swiss media. In fact, we were looking through the newspapers earlier this morning, and there are several new articles. Right when we arrived at Bilderberg, before we even reached St. Moritz, we found the newspaper which said that Bilderberg were deciding the success to Strauss-Kahn at the IMF. So again, anybody who argues that Bilderberg has no power, no influence, is proven wrong yet again. Now, I just want to tell our viewers that we're going to be doing some very interesting Justin TV streams coming up over the next hour or two. And of course, not only can you watch the live broadcast of this protest at justin.tv, but all the videos that we do shoot will be archived, so look out for those in the next few hours. Now, we already shot a couple of Justin TV videos this morning, so be sure to check them out. And of course, all these videos will be posted on prisonplanet.com and infowars.com. I'm going to go to another break now, have a short piece of music, and we'll come back to wrap up this broadcast and then switch to Justin TV Live for what promises to be a very intriguing next few hours. Stay tuned.
You take a mortal man and put him in control. Watch him become a god. Watch people's heads roll. Just like the Pied Piper, led rats through the streets. We dance like marionettes, swaying to the symphony of destruction. Acting like a robot. Its metal brain corrodes. You try to take us balls before the head explodes. Explodes. like the Pied Piper, let rest through the streets. We dance like marionettes, swaying to the symphony, swaying to the symphony of destruction. The earth starts to rumble. World powers fall. Roaring for the heavens. A peaceful man stands tall. Tall. Just like the Pied Piper, let rest through the streets. Dance like marionettes, swaying to the symphony. Just like the Pied Piper, let rest through the streets. Dance like marionettes, swaying to the symphony, swaying through the symphony of destruction.
Okay, we are back on the live special broadcast on Saturday, June 11th, outside the Bilderberg Hotel, site of the Bilderberg meetings 2011, the Shuvreta Hotel. Another very interesting tip we've just gained from some of our contacts among the activists and the local people here of Switzerland. Switzerland, of course, every citizen is part of the civil army, and we have been told that one of the heads of the civil army is mobilizing people and checking with their jurisdiction, if you will, to see if they are in a position to show up and sort of demand that Bilderberg be ousted from the country. Obviously, although they do carry guns as part of the civil army, it would be a nonviolent, peaceful demand if they were to mobilize. Of course, I'm not an expert on the Swiss system, but I am somewhat familiar with it. I've heard about it. That would be a very interesting development if any portion of the civil army were to surround the Bilderberg Hotel and demand that they leave the country, given their authority as the people of Switzerland. That is obviously not confirmed, but we do have that from a source who we know is connected, and that will be fleshed out later. If it develops, we will, of course, update you on that interesting note. With just a few minutes to go here, we would kind of hint, Paul Watts has mentioned before, to just keep an eye on the Justin TV feeds. Of course, we've been doing live updates throughout the day for the past several days since Wednesday the 8th, as we've gained intel, as we've gained new knowledge of the goings-on inside the hotel. We've also been talking quite a bit with Jim Tucker, and we'll continue to get his always very interesting information, which over the years has proved to be extremely accurate and obviously based on real sources who know what they're talking about. As I mentioned, we have other citizen activists and local Swiss people with connections inside the hotel. We don't know if any of that information would develop, but if it were, it would be very interesting. And as we dropped early in this very special broadcast, we have also developed a source who may be a male escort for one of the Bilderberg attendees. Obviously, we want to be very careful disclosing information, but we do have a tip on kind of the locale of this, and we may find out how much there is to it. Of course, being very careful to watch our back and do things in the open, but also quite safely. I also want to mention we're going to do another live special broadcast tonight at 8 p.m. local Swiss time. That is 1 p.m. Central Time in Texas. We're going to do another live special broadcast here on Saturday because we're just developing so many bombshell stories. If you've been following Infowars.com coverage throughout the past week, you know we have had just story after story. Rick Perry, Hillary Clinton, the agenda leaked by moles inside the Bilderberg meetings. That's just a few things I can remember off the top of my head. As we told you, we've been up all night developing our sources, basically by feeding him drinks, the only way to get him to speak. So we are a little bit out of it, but we're trying to make do the best we can on a little bit of sleep. We're about to end this portion of the live special Saturday broadcast. Of course, it will be archived at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.tv. Hopefully, Kurt Nimmo and Steve Watson, who are doing the updating, while Paul Watson and myself are here in Switzerland. Hopefully, they can add that special broadcast to the websites. We'll bring you more information as it develops. Just one more thing to mention before we end this broadcast. Alex Jones couldn't be here in Switzerland, although he really wanted to be, because he's in New York today giving a speech to the Talker Seminar, which is itself a very bombshell development because the mainstream media has tried to ignore Alex Jones, and yet at the same time they have seen his just absolutely meteoric rise, gaining millions and millions and millions of new listeners all the time. We've just got recent statistics. Excuse me. We've just received recent statistics that only on the Shoutcast streams alone on the Internet, only one of several Internet streams, including Infowars.com, we're now getting 24 million viewers per month. Absolutely incredible. And so Alex is going to be talking about those kind of aspects, why he's able to grow so much as a member of the alternative media at the Talk Seminar, which is dominated by Fox News talk show hosts, other mainstream talk show hosts across the country, and they've simply had to recognize that Alex is a force to be dealt with. And so it'll be pretty simple for him to just explain. He tells the truth that the mainstream media continues to cover up and lie. They've given it a funny title at the Talker Seminar, Guess Who's Coming to Keynote, because Alex is giving the keynote speech. That is actually a reference to a movie from the 60s called Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, very controversial, but also well-done movie with Sidney Poitier in the 60s, dealing with interracial couples and the shock of a parent learning that their daughter's dating a black man. Kind of a pseudo-reference to the fact that Alex is not a welcome face in the typical mainstream media because he reports such dynamic and real information, not the controlled stuff you see on the televised things. So Alex, the sort of black sheep, if you will, not a racial reference, by the way, Alex, the black sheep of talk radio, will be sort of debuting and a debutante, if you will, with the mainstream people who gather each year at the Talker Seminar. So we'll hear more from Alex later about the speech he gave and what he had to say to some of the most influential radio station owners and talk show hosts throughout the country. But again, we are, of course, live 2011 Bilderberg here in Switzerland, and we will absolutely bring you more updates as they come in. We're going to be checking on numerous sources as we continue to break just bombshell information from inside the hotel and from here in the St. Moritz community throughout the day. Please stay tuned at Infowars.com and at Justin TV, and as well on our Twitter account, Real Alex Jones. We're going to end this special broadcast for now, but just another reminder, 1 p.m. Texas Central Time in the United States, and that is 8 p.m. in Swiss time. We'll be doing another live special broadcast here on this Saturday, June 11th. For now, I'm signing off. This is Aaron Dykes, Infowars.com. Please check the rebroadcast. Share this information with your friends. Ask them to look at it. If they don't know who the Bilderberg Group is yet, they need to find out what they're doing to shape the world agenda and our lives. Signing off for now. Thank you. Please stay tuned. Infowars.com.
What if I say I'm not like the others? What if I say I'm not just another one in your place? You're the pretender. What if I say I will never surrender? Right, I'm the enemy. I'm What if I say I'm not like